What's up, everybody? We are back with another episode of Morbid Curiosities here. I'm Mercedes Martinez, and with me is the nefarious necromancer.
Nicholas Ewers. We got a fun one for you guys today. We're talking about Scream 2. Just gonna hop right into it. How you feeling about that, Mercedes? Ready to get down and dirty with this one?
Hell yeah, Wes Craven strikes again with this film. And it's funny because, kind of like how I was with Sinister, I really liked Scream 2 the most out of the original three when they came out. And rewatching it now, what the fuck was I thinking? Like, it just went down a couple notches for me.
It was your favorite, and now, not to spoil our ranking, but did it drop significantly?
I would say maybe a movie, it dropped one movie level. I need to go and watch the rest of these in order to feel secure in that answer. But I don't know. Yeah, I was surprised because I was excited to watch this one for the podcast more so than the third one. But now watching it again, I was just thinking, all right, let's jump to the next scene. All right, this part's boring, X, Y, and Z. Are we done yet? And I'm never really like that with films. So I was so surprised that I felt that way with this. How was your experience watching this, though?
I gotta say, before I fully get into my experience, it is kind of interesting now, like getting into Scream. I'm talking with you about it. I was talking with my buddy Doug over at These Guys Got Juice, another like huge Scream fan. And now I'm starting to hear how other people feel about the sequels. I've just never really had conversations like this before. And like my buddy Doug was like, number four is my favorite. And you're like, I like two more and three I wasn't looking forward to. And now I'm kind of figuring it out like, oh, these like yeah, might be kind of shaky in some areas. I didn't know what to expect. I kind of assumed everybody liked all of them. But I've heard opinions from like a couple friends about later sequels now. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting how it's all coming together. I When I threw this movie on, oh, fun fact real quick. They were actually going to call this movie Scream the sequel. How do you feel about that as a title?
That would have been garbage. I did hear that too. And I'm so happy they just went with Scream 2. Nice, short, sweet, to the point. Just keep it like that. Scream the sequel. What the fuck?
Yeah, Scream the sequel would have been rough because they're on like Scream 6 right now. So what is the titling convention like that? You eventually are in like Fast and Furious territory where your sequel titling was so ridiculous, Too Fast, Too Furious, and you kind of had to just go with a rhythm like that for the rest of the sequels. You would have backed yourself into a corner a little bit. So it was smart for them to just go Scream 2, I think. Kinda like with them calling it Scary Movie.
But I think if they went with stupid titles with that, it would have been cool. But then there are also all these other dumb spinoffs, like how I was telling you before, Shriek, if you know what I did last Friday the 13th. Just keeping it Scream 2. Perfect.
Yeah, they're also bringing Scary Movie back, that's another thing we have to,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
account for.
True.
Yeah, but so Scream 2, when I first put it on, man, I gotta tell you, so I had seen the intro before. Aside from the intro and another scene that happens later in the movie, I was completely unfamiliar. The mystery to this movie, I had no idea what was going on. And I'll say this now because I don't think we said it before. Spoilers for Scream 2 going forward. Yeah, I really didn't know. I was like so locked into the mystery of this movie. And I really did enjoy that because I didn't get that with the first Scream. And so it felt really cool to be really locked in and kind of wonder like, is it this person, isn't this person? I know the tricks the first movie played. What's going on here? And that kind of excites me because I don't know if all the sequels do that, but I'm kind of excited because I don't know any of like the twists or spoilers or any things they throw at you in later movies. So I I really appreciated that. I'm glad I haven't been really spoiled going forward. Uh, I gotta say, when I first put on the movie, it was a rocky start. I was worried that I was not gonna like it, and this was gonna be an episode where I was just a downer. But about an hour into it, it really picks up for me. I got excited, and it has a strong landing, I would say. And so it's a movie that I felt kind of got shaky. It felt like it really wasn't justifying its own existence at first for me, but again, by the midway point, it really won me over because of a few specific scenes that happened that we'll talk about, and, I put it at about, like, a four-star category on Letterboxd. Follow me on Letterboxd at Nicholas Ewers.
Spoilers ahead. We start off with everyone in line for a sneak premiere of or preview of Stab in this movie. So it's a movie within a movie talking about the story of Scream. And you have Pinkett Smith. I always mess up her name. I mess up everyone's name. And then Omar Epps as the main
Omar
couple
Epps.
yeah. So they're the introductory couple here, and they're in there just talking about the movie. She's not really hyped for it, but they're walking into this theater. It is fucking jammed pack inside. Everyone is fucking off the rails, going crazy. They all have the ghost face costume on, and even the ushers in the movie, they have ghost face, I don't know, thing hooked up to like these wires. That way they can have him like floating over everybody. What fucking movie theater
Yeah, what
is
the
that
fuck?
elaborate? Yeah, all these
Yeah, it's like
ushers,
a viewing of the Minecraft movie or something.
something. They went all out for this, and you're thinking, how are they in this much of a party mode with this movie based on true events of like all these other students getting killed? I don't know anyone who really celebrates those facts, but that was I would like to be in a movie theater like that, but where do those exist?
That's a very good point. I actually didn't think about it, which I probably am not that smart for not having put this connection together. But yeah, these in the context of the movie, these are real life events, and people are being like it's a Batman movie, or like Spider-Man just came back to the MCU, or I guess Avengers Endgame would have been a better comparison. But yeah, it's like mass people are coming out in droves, dressed up and going crazy. The only time I've seen people dressed up in a movie theater is when I saw Batman Begins and The Dark Knight.
See, that makes more sense. Batman is a beloved character, and the Dark Knight, like everyone was so hyped up for the Joker and everything. But here
Yeah.
they even
Now you
call.
can't do that anymore.
Exactly. And in here, they even mention that too. You see that Jada, her character in here is Maureen. She's going to the concession stand. She's a little uneasy with the movie, but then she hears these girls behind her saying, this was based on a true story. So, I don't want to watch this shit essentially. So yeah, they show the movie of Stab. It's basically recreating the whole scene of Casey Becker from the first Scream movie, which is very detailed and exaggerated, but whatever. Movie's a movie.
It's also an homage to Psycho too. I didn't notice it. I listened to a bit of the commentary. It wasn't too insightful, so I turned it off. It was the writer wasn't there. I felt like there's a reason the writer wasn't there, but and a producer was there. That felt like a choice kind of. But Wes Craven said that it was an homage to Psycho, and it's like, yeah, shot for shot, almost the shower scene. I thought that was pretty cool.
But that fucking shower, who the hell designs a shower with this big ass window next to it? That's horrific. Yeah, don't trust these houses that they have in these movies. They have
Yeah.
windows and doors that are gigantic, and this bitch even has her roof. has a big ass window and they show Ghostface on top. I don't know. That had to have been a cool movie to watch, just how ridiculous it was.
All very good points. She must be like totally secluded in this house to justify having large windows that are kind of welcoming to a serial killer in a way. It's almost like they went to the future, heard our conversation from last Monday, where we talked about how she felt so vulnerable. And they're like, in the fictional one, we need to ramp it up. And instead of it being a living room, we'll just make it the bathroom.
Exactly. It was all over the place in there. I was enjoying it. But yeah, it was funny because once Maureen's character comes back, her boyfriend Omar, his character's name in here is Phil. He scares her with the ghost face mask. And I just thought it was funny because she got pissed off at him for that, and he's trying to make it like a little sexual foreplay for them, but you see how her mood does change after that. Going into the film, she was bitching about it, about the topic of the movie itself, about horror in general, and just complaining about the movie when it started. And then after that, she relaxes a little bit, she kind of gets into it. And then when she goes back into the theater, she's full on engaged with the movie. So, if you need a hot date recommendation, watch Scary Movie or Scream 2 and any horror movie in general. Just saying.
This is actually like a good date night movie. There is some Scream is a special movie, but I feel like this intro is just as iconic, and in a way I honestly like it more than the beginning of the first Scream movie. This really works for me. I like Omar Epps and Jada Pinkett as a couple. They look really cute. It seems more healthy than Jada and Will's real life relationship. It makes you forget about that a little bit. You know? Yeah, it's like I honestly when oh man, not to like rush ahead, but Omar Epps, when his death happens, one, it's so creative, like the stab through the cheek, but you feel his loss. I feel that kind of harder than Drew Barrymore a little bit. I mean, what are your thoughts comparing the two intros?
I do like them as a couple. You can buy that they're a couple in here. I don't feel the same way. I felt more heartbroken when Drew Barrymore was killed, probably because of how prolonged her death was. They were playing this fucking game with her over the phone. They killed her boyfriend right in front of her, and then they were like chasing her around until they ultimately did kill her. Whereas Omar, I thought his death was kind of stupid. You're in a bathroom and then you hear someone like whispering in the stall next to you. Why are you going to put your ear on a fucking nasty ass bathroom stall to listen? You want to listen to another guy in the bathroom? Who does that? And then how's this knife strong enough to penetrate into the bathroom stall and fucking stab him?
I could maybe buy the knife stabbing through. I get what you mean about him putting his ear up to it. I didn't fully buy that at first because I was like, where is that whispering coming from? It was something with the sound design that kind of threw me off, that made me feel like it couldn't be the bathroom stall next to it. It doesn't seem that way. But so we're in full spoiler mode and like right now, so like you and I both know who the killer is. Listeners, if you don't know who the killer is, it gets revealed to be Laurie Metcalf. I don't know if that's her voice in the stall, but I rewatched a little bit of it right when I finished the movie, and I was trying to pay close attention, and it sounds like it's her talking to herself and Billy, who's not there at the same time. It's like really kind of creepy. It almost makes your skin crawl, but go back and listen to that intro if you haven't. It plays a lot weirder, creepier, and like scarier after knowing everything you know about the ending. One thing I do really enjoy about this intro too though is they're talking I think it's when they're in line, they're talking about the misrepresentation of black people in horror movies. and I do like that it's a movie this movie is f furthering its commentary on horror movie and its role in the world and pop culture. I felt like that was a nice place to start, and then the movie actually makes an attempt to, I feel like, have general or genuine portrayals of black characters in this. So I thought that was a pretty cool place to start it.
Yeah, it was. And then they even have like other characters in here. You have Gail's cameraman, Joel, who's Dwayne Martin, and then Sydney's roommate, Hallie, Elise Neal. They were some, comical characters in here. I did enjoy them. I'll jump to them in a second. But I do like that you mentioned that what's her name? Laurie Metcalf is you think she is the one who's the one who killed Omar in the beginning because
Yeah.
I actually thought it was the other killer. So spoilers on that guys. The second killer in here is Mickey Altieri. His real name is Timothy
Timothy Olyphant from
Oliphant.
Justified. I love Timothy Olyphant. Mercedes, have you watched Justified?
I watched the, first episode, and then for some reason I stopped watching it, but I did like it, so I also liked him in The Crazies, so now
Yes.
I wanna watch Justified.
He's basically playing Raylan Givens in The Crazies. I love Justified. I didn't know Timothy Olyphant was in this movie or Laurie Metcalf from Lady Bird, one of my all-time favorite movies. So I was like giddy. I gotta say, Laurie Metcalf, I didn't like try to suss it out, but I did pick up like pretty like about halfway through. I was like, I think she's probably the killer." I thought it was her and Gail's cameraman, actually.
Interesting.
I wasn't trying to suss it out, but that's where my mind was naturally going at first. I was like, I think it's Laurie Metcalf, not for the reasons that I thought it was going to be, not him being the killer's mom or her being the killer's mom. I thought it was going to be something to do with like furthering her career or trying to be Gail Weathers. I had no idea where this was going to go. I realized that halfway through, like, this could be anyone. And I put my eyes on Laurie Metcalf and the camera guy.
I like that assumption there. I'll throw my 2 cents in when we get a little further in. Just to like wrap up the beginning, I thought it was a cool intro kill. Not Omar Epps, but Jada Pinkett Smith. That just the killer comes back and he's wearing Omar's jacket to pose as him. She's all in the film. He's finally stabbing her, and everyone in the fucking theater is going crazy, thinking, "Oh yeah, this is just like for show." And then she goes up on by the screen and lets out that nasty ass scream, and then most of
Yeah.
the people realize that she's actually dying. You have a few dumbasses who still think it's fake, and they're just like, doing the little stabbing motion with their knives and like smiling. It's like, dude, what the fuck? Get it together.
It's awful.
Oh, it truly
It's
is.
pretty horrific, and the first face she makes when the camera is, like, shining on her and she stands up, it's like a weird, like, awkward, like, pained smile almost.
Right.
It was interesting. I it was a pretty effective scene, though.
It was a cool way to kill her. We jump into Sydney's world again. She's in film school. She sees what is it? Cotton Weary on TV. You have his character as I'm gonna jack up his name. Leave Schreiber.
Leave Schreiber.
Okay, cool. Thanks. He's on this little talk show, just trying to clear his name because he was cleared for the murder of Sydney Prescott's mom. And, she's just watching it. And what do you think her reaction was while she was watching that? Like, do you feel like she was just kind of annoyed with that? Do you feel like she was mad or just, in shock of it? Because I was having a hard time gauging her emotions right there.
I couldn't really tell either.
Yeah, it's not like a big scene or anything, but I was just curious on it because she just is watching it and, her face is just like emotionless. So I don't know, maybe at that point she's just kind of thinking, not necessarily like, oh, I feel bad for him or like any type of empathy, but she's just like, okay, well, now he's on TV and, talking his name up and everything. So
You bring up a good point because I think Sydney in general, her behavior towards Cotton throughout the whole movie feels kind of off. Cotton's behavior towards her feels off. The whole dynamic feels strange.
it's so strange, their interactions in this film. But yeah, they end up finding out about the two that were her and her roommate find out that they were the two other classmates were killed at the movie theater the night prior. So, Sydney goes to find Randy. He's in his film class. That's where you see, some other side characters. So you have Mickey, you have Sarah Michelle Gellar, who's playing Cece Cooper in here. And, they're all just having like a little debate on the movie and, stuff that happened.
They're talking about horror movie sequels, actually,
Hmm.
specifically. And Timothy Oliphant's character, Mickey, he's driving this conversation, which now playing in retrospect, having seen everything, it it makes sense why he's the one on the side of sequels can be better. He's arguing Aliens is better than Alien. He's arguing Terminator 2 is better than Terminator. I actually disagree with Mickey. I like Alien and Terminator more. They're stylistically different, but it was a nice debate, and this actually was going to be played differently. I watched a deleted scene and they really drove it home that Mickey was being kind of a psycho almost about sequels being better, but I did like this seating, like this little conversation kind of carrying on throughout the whole movie. It was kind of one of my favorite parts is this dynamic of Mickey and Randy. But also Randy's like hot now in this one. He's
Right.
actually like somewhat likable. Yeah.
I think looking back at it now, that was the only reason why I liked Scream 2, because Jamie Kennedy, I dug his look in here, but I also liked Jerry O'Connell in here. I thought they were both like so handsome back in the day when I was watching it. And it's crazy just to look at like Jamie Kennedy now and see all of the facial hair and everything. He looks so different now in my eyes. But yeah, I think that was a big pull into this movie. But yeah, you meet Jerry O'Connell. He is Sydney's boyfriend in here. He seems nice and everything. You see that Randy is still kind of not pining for Sydney, but he still has his little crush on her. And then they see all the news reporters there for like this press conference with the sheriff talking about the two murders. Why are they conducting that press conference on the college campus? You think they would want to keep it from the school?
I would buy them going to the school. I don't think news sources are above that. I one thing I was kind of expecting the movie to do with Randy and Sydney, and this conversation, like Randy spraying the thing in his mouth, being like, What would you do differently?" He would say the nerd would get the girl. I thought they were going to go in that direction. And actually, like, without getting too far ahead, I don't really like what the movie does with Randy, and we'll talk about it later, but there's something that happens that I feel like was kind of a mistake, but we'll get into
Same.
that.
Fucking same.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, you see like during the press conference, Dewey comes back. He talks to Gail or Sydney, but then he, kind of reunites with Gail, and you see there's a lot of tension in there. And it's so different from how their relationship was like a budding relationship in the first movie. But you find out, Gail basically trash talked Dewey in her book about the Woodsboro murders. And, he took offense to that. And who wouldn't? He's crushing on this bitch hard as hell. And then he thinks she's vibing with him in the same way, but then has to read something that she published for the entire world to read and just basically calling him a dweeb and all of it. I felt bad for Dewey. You don't diss Dewey like that. He's a key factor in these roles.
Yeah, she said he was, like, oozing in capability or something like that,
Yeah.
and I do like his line. He was like, "If you'll excuse me, I have to go ooze somewhere," or something
Yeah.
like that. I thought that was a really nice line. This is also the part too, I think, where Gail, who this is where the movie is actually like the shakiest for me, is the Gail being here. Gail feels like kind of out of place. Like the movie wants her here in the first half and it can't figure out really what to do with her until it fully gets her and Dewey back on board later on. And so like I had issue with this and she's like, got Cotton fucking tagging along the whole time, which really kind of throws up like, creates a weird dynamic. She tries to set up a conversation, I wanna say this is the point, where with, Sidney and Cotton, and it feels almost illegal to be doing this. It like, these 2 shouldn't be talking. Cotton should be, like, I don't know if he would be allowed to be around Sidney Prescott after, like, the accusations that were thrown at him, and it just all feels, like, so clunky to me, and I think this is where I was struggling the most with the movie at in the first hour.
Yeah, I see your point with that. That whole interview scene was just uncomfortable to watch because, seeing what Gail does, she's trying to just conduct this unscheduled interview because she wants to get, the raw emotion that Sydney experiences because she doesn't know who's about to just pop up right there. And it's just, one, she deserved to get slapped for that. But yeah, it's like I don't think there would be a way for them to be together for that. So yeah, that was super forced, but it was a cool scene to see Sydney like assault Gail again. She really deserved that. And I thought it was funny because I saw these movies before I ever really watched the show Friends. I just knew Courtney Cox was in Friends, and it was funny because I guess she had to lobby for the role a lot of Gale Weathers because Wes Craven didn't think she could be bitchy enough for this role, which is insane because when I watch these films, I didn't want to watch Friends or anything else with her in it because I was like, man, she's a bitch in here. Like, I really don't like her. So at least she played this character very fucking well. So yeah, kudos to Gail on this.
Yeah, the movie did a really or this series actually has done a really good job of taking TV actors and really playing them against type with Courtney Cox, David Arquette, Henry Winkler, and then I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know what Laurie Metcalf was doing at this period, but I wouldn't be surprised if she was maybe big in TV. I would have to look at her career, what was going on with her.
I think she was on the show Roseanne at the time.
Was she on Roseanne? Then that wouldn't surprise me if
Yeah.
she was on Roseanne, if that's why they picked her. Okay, cool. I really mostly know her from Lady Bird. She's the mom in Lady Bird and is like a pivotal part in that movie, and I like adore that movie. It's like, yeah, it's great. But next, we end up, I want to say, at the sorority party. Cece is the like the designated driver. Basically, she's the safe sorority sister. I forget what they call her, but she gets a call from Ghostface. She assumes it's her boyfriend Ted, who's been drinking. There's a moment later when Ghostface calls again, and someone believes it's Ted, and I was like, I would hope her boyfriend actually sounds like Ted, but it turns out not to be. It's kind of disappointing. But yeah, she gets these calls from Ghostface. Tension starts wrapping up. One of her or she tries to call the campus police. There is a bad connection. One of her sorority sisters, it turns out, is still there. she's the one who answers the phone, says like, "Oh, it's Ted." And in the middle of all of this, you see Ghostface kind of sneak past them into the house. And so I really enjoyed this setup. I think this is honestly most of the Ghostface stuff is really cool setup wise. It's been like pretty pulse pounding watching it. It's exciting action. It's a lot of chases, and I didn't know they could be like this exhilarating. It's some of the best slasher chases I think I've seen. But I mean, what do you think about this? I have a little bit of story and detail I want to go into about this scene, but what are your thoughts so far?
This was a scene that really freaked me out from this movie when I first watched it. Now looking at it, I feel like, there's a bunch of different little errors because they say yes that Cece is the sober sister just in case any of her drunk sisters needs a ride home, but it seems as if the I don't know what the other house is called, Delta Lambda Zeta whatever, that that's the house that's actually hosting the party, and that's the sorority that Sydney's roommate Hallie wants to rush. And you got the two main girls in that sorority. What are their names? Rebecca Gayhart and then Portia something. I can't remember her last name, but yeah, you see
Shout out
there.
Rebecca Gayheart.
Yeah, I love her in here and in every movie she's in. Yeah, they are like basically begging Sydney to fucking join their sorority. And when everything is going on with Cece, and then she ultimately does get killed by Ghostface, everyone at the other house party, they're like, oh my god, something happened at the Omega Beta Zeta house, and everyone's running over to that house, and it just looks like those houses were across the street from each other. So I don't know why Cece needed to be the sober sister in there. I'm probably looking into that too much, but yeah, just that whole setup was
It
pretty.
might be to prevent, like, sexual assault. That's kind of what I was thinking. If they're not driving, it could be like, "Oh, like, to walk this person home to make sure they make it home fine."
Okay, that sounds a little better. Which is funny because there's some hints to that for Scream 3. But yeah, her whole death scene, it just had me on edge the entire time because majority of the scene when she's like looking around because she hears someone upstairs, or the phone's ringing and then she hears something in the next room. Sarah Michelle Gellar's character looks at the camera a lot, so that kind of just like brings you into the film too. I love it when movies do that because that just like makes me think, damn, they're looking into my soul right now. I'm like right there with you. Is someone behind me too? So I actually really like her death scene a lot.
So, when I mentioned earlier that there was a part of the movie that I had seen before, this was that part. I had seen it a long time ago as a very little kid. I don't remember the context. I was trying to place it in my head. I might have been at my aunt and uncle's, not too far from uh, where I grew up, and I wanna say it was, like, late at night right before I was gonna go to bed, and I was skipping through TV channels and then just kinda landed on whatever Scream movie I didn't know I was watching at the time, and I watched, like, this whole thing play out from the moment he snuck into the house, and the moment that happened, I was like, "Oh my god, I've seen this before," and then I kinda got just transported to being a little kid watching this, and I watched it a couple times over. I just got taken back and transported to a time and place that I didn't realize I had buried in my head, but this scene is very effective. Within the context of the movie, it's a lot more fun than it played as when I was a kid. I had a whole different perception of Scream because of this scene. I just thought it was this movie about this ghost face guy breaks into your house and just chases you and murders you, and I thought it was just all that. I didn't realize there was any, like, substance character or funny beats or commentary. So, yeah, but this scene when Ghostface is chasing her, I found it exciting. The camera work is very cool. If someone's running to through a room from right to left, the camera is moving from left to right. It's very active, and the score is just as honestly, it feels it kind of makes this scene feel a bit more propulsive. Everything in this movie is kind of propulsive. Everything's moving, the story's moving, there's constant developments, and the score adds to that. If you get a chance, go back and rewatch the scene. The violin shrieking, the horns,
Mhm.
how bombastic they get. It fucking it is really good work. I This song in particular I couldn't find available for streaming. It was really irritating, but yeah, the Scream score is great. I don't It's like unlike anything I've really like feel like I've heard in horror. It's so big and present.
Yeah, it definitely is because by the time she runs upstairs and she's on the balcony, you hear everything full blast with the score. And then at that point, she's screaming for her life and Ghostface is stabbing her in the back. I hate that that's the method he chooses a lot is to stab people in the back. It freaks me out. And then he throws her over the balcony, and then I don't know if it was
I
the
like that.
next. Yeah, because then everything, like, goes silent when she does fall, and she's just screaming, but then once she hits the ground, I don't know if this was included in the song that starts to play directly after that, but you hear like a car alarm or something. And originally, I thought she fell on a car because I heard that right away. And I don't know, it just goes hand in hand together with that scene.
Honestly, so out of these 2 movies so far, this might be my favorite kill just because of the feeling I got when I was watching it, but I've enjoyed so far the sloppiness of Ghostface, but I really like how he just kinda thrusts her off. It's not big or climactic. He's not he or she isn't like super strong in some like Michael Myers type of way. He really has to try, and it worked for me. And then the song that plays, I don't know what it was. I didn't Shazam it or take the time to look it up, but it was a nice touch. It was a nice like capper on that kill.
Yeah, definitely. They throw you back at the house party, and it's cool because Matthew Lillard was actually in the background at a certain point. He was like briefly dating Nev Campbell, and so he went to visit her on set, and I guess Wes Craven was like, "Hey, let's throw you into the movie here."
That's
You
fun.
could barely see him, and his hair is like blonde in there.
Yeah, I saw in the credits that he was some uncredited character, but I didn't catch him, didn't notice him, but it's good to know where he is now. So next time I watch this, I'll pay attention for him.
His character is very blurry. You just see a blonde guy. I think he had glasses in there. So that kind of segues into the next scene. Everyone is over to check out what happened at her house. And Sydney and her boyfriend Derek, they're still at the house party house. And he's saying, get your coat. Like, I'll take you home. She walks in the house. It's empty, but then the phone rings. Some reason she picks it up, and then it's Ghostface on there. And, they have their conversation, but then he shows up, or she, and they are very clumsy in this scene when they're trying to like chase her around. They try to stab her when she's trying to run out the front door, but then they end up stabbing the door and the knife goes through and it almost cuts Derek's face. And then the killer just like looks at her while they're stuck. When they're even trying to like run around to beat Sydney to the living room, I think, they fall on a couch recliner. And I just thought that was amusing that they were having that in there. Cece Cooper just had this fucked up death scene and this intense chase. But, the killer here is just falling all over his feet and everything. It adds a nice little touch to it, a little difference here.
I've been trying to place who I think was taking on the role of Ghostface at one moment, and I think the CC death I kinda took my takeaway was that's Timothy Olyphant, and I feel like the one targeting Sydney must be Laurie Metcalf. I thought they were gonna try to do more of a fake out with Derek being the killer, just because he walks out the door, and when the door closes behind him, it's Ghostface, but then they kind of get away with that with him getting slashed off screen. I did have to Google why Dewey walks with a limp at first, and then later they have a conversation about why he walks with a limp. And I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, so the movie has the same questions I do."
Yeah, I you kind of forget about that too until they do mention that with him and Randy. And it's funny too because even in that scene, Dewey's still kind of like his kid character. He's drinking a milkshake, whereas in the first one, he has his little ice cream cone. It's like some of his habits never die. It's kind of cute saying that.
But he feels affected by the events of the first movie. He feels maybe the most affected, honestly.
I mean, he lost a blood relative. Like,
And do you know who Louis Arquette, if his relationship to David Arquette, what that would be? He plays one of the chiefs.
yeah, that's actually David Arquette's actual father in real life.
Okay, I was wondering that. I was like, that must be like a father or an uncle or something. That's cool.
Yeah, once I found that out, I'm like looking at him just to find the similarities of like their facial features. You can kind of see it, but I thought that was. I always love it when they have relatives playing roles, like co-starring with each other in movies. I don't know, that just hits like a sweet spot in my heart every time I see that. It's great.
Yeah, we've gotten it twice so far. We got it in the Chucky movies, and then we got it right here. So that's pretty sweet.
And there will be plenty more to come. After Derek's arm gets sliced, Dewey comes in, he tries to help him. They're at the hospital, I think, and Derek's getting questioned by the chief of police so they could try to figure out, okay, well, did you see the killer? And, Dewey's kind of saying, it was a little convenient that, the killer cut you and then just ran off. And you see he's suspecting him as well, but then, Derek is saying, "Well, you just got there too late." Then you have Mickey going to try to like comfort Sydney right there while they're talking and just, kind of planning it in her head, Derek shouldn't have been playing a hero. Like, why would he go back in that house anyway? And then you see that kind of clicks in Sydney's head, like, why would he go back in the house?
Did you originally know the mystery of like did you know who it was going to be when you first saw this, or did you have a time where you had no idea?
I had a feeling it was Mickey just because of how he was acting. I thought he was just like a strange little side character. And then even in that scene where he was, comforting Sydney right here, he kind of whispers in a way or just has like a low tone to his voice. And when I heard that, I was like, wait, that sounds like, the killer who was whispering in the initial kill with Omar Epps. So that's why I thought it was cool when you were saying, it was probably Laurie being the killer in that scene. I actually thought it was the other way around. So yeah, I thought it was only Mickey. I didn't think that there were two killers. And I didn't necessarily suspect Laurie's character, Debbie Salt, I think. Yeah, I only thought it was Mickey. I didn't even think it was Derek at all. So that threw me off once they did the killer reveal.
One thing that kind of adds a little bit to Laurie Metcalf being Billy's mom is that I didn't pick up on this at first. I just thought it was a funny bit, but there's a moment I was trying to place where it was in the movie, but where they're at the movie theater and you're seeing footage from Stab, and it's a recreation of where Billy and Sydney talk about their parents, and it's the only way they really get exposition about Billy's mom and what happened with her into the movie. And but they get it in there as a bit where it's Luke Wilson and
Tori Spelling.
yeah, Luke Wilson and Tori Spelling are playing Sydney and Billy, and it's like almost word for word. It's like maybe a few words are off here and there. I was trying to tell, but it is also kind of funny too. No one was around for this conversation but them, but
Right.
it somehow ended up in the movie. But I thought it was a cool way to get out that exposition.
Yeah, that was actually the scene where Dewey and Randy are at a Baskin Robbins having their little milkshakes and they're trying to suss out who is or who could be the killer or killers. And it was cool too because Randy even mentions, Mrs. Voorhees was a terrific serial killer. So, that is another little like hint like, okay, it could be a mother in here. They just try to go down the line of who it could be for the killer, and then at some point, Randy does suspect Mickey, and then Dewey's just like, "Well, these people are your friends, like, who do you think is actually the killer?" Um, and he just throws out, it could be Gail Weathers, but then Dewey just defends her to a T. And then Brandy tells him, like, well, she's not a killer, she is a target. So you still see his, everyone is a suspect mentality in here. And I like that because, you don't expect Billy's mom to come back. At least I didn't. So
Then around this time, is it where Randy, Gale, and Dewey all end up together and receive the ghost faced phone call?
lead us into it. Talk about it more. That part breaks my soul.
Yeah, so I don't remember beat for beat everything that happens, but it's basically the three of them together. They're in or like near Gale's news van and they get a call from Ghostface. And then it becomes this fun situation of somebody's watching them on the phone with them right now, and I'm like, as an audience member, looking in the background trying to figure out there are characters on the phone. They notice the one guy on the phone, and I was pointing at my TV saying, look at him. And it seems like they heard me. But so it's very fun. It's such a cool part to have in a Scream movie. I was delighted by it. The thing that is kind of the worst is Randy ends up back in Gale's news van and Ghostface is in there and stabs him to death. The camera work is pretty cool. You get like the side view mirror shot and Ghostface is on top of him stabbing him. He really like murders the shit out of him and they keep it hidden. And so part of me was like, it can't be Randy. Like like Randy can't be dead. There's no way it's going to be a fake out. And even when they reveal the body, I was like, there's no way. Like they can't. That seems like a mistake to kill Randy off. They're gonna undo this. And then at the end, when they were doing the villain reveals, and you first hear like the voice under the ghost face mask, I was like, is that Randy's voice? And then I had to remember, oh wait, yeah, they killed Randy earlier. It just I couldn't believe it. It felt like a mistake. I've heard people kind of speculate that maybe the actor was kind of difficult to work with because you don't really see him acting in movies too much outside of this time. Jamie Kennedy, that's all alleged, just hearsay, but it just seems like a mistake killing that guy off. They knew in the first one that they had someone on their hands with Dewey. How could they not know it with Randy? He seems like a clear audience favorite that you wouldn't want to lose.
Yeah, my sentiments exactly. I enjoyed the, back and forth that Randy and Ghostface were having. He didn't originally know what to say to keep him on the phone, but he's just going into horror movie topics or like which one is your favorite. And then he's trying to like scope out who it could be as well while Gail and Dewey are tackling people in the background. But yeah, you see him kind of getting heated because Ghostface is like, why are you even here? You're never going to be the leading man and you're never going to get the girl. And I hated it because I think that was just like kind of what let Randy, like, I don't know, let his guard down, because then yeah, he got close to the news van. So it's like, all right, if Ghostface was hiding in the news van, his intentions were to kill Gail. And then I guess it was just like he got, or she got sidetracked tracked and decided to kill off Randy instead for talking shit about Billy. But I was so mad about that. I think I cried when I first watched it because I was like, "You can't kill Randy."
Oh,
And how
no.
the fuck is no one listening or hearing this? I was so mad about that. I didn't even want to watch the rest of the movie.
And no one's hearing it because there's a big boom box that they walk out with
Those fucking
conveniently at that
assholes.
time,
I was
blasting loud
so mad.
music.
I
I
was
was like,
so
"Oh, that's
mad at
great.
that part.
That's great."
No, that part was so fucked up. But yeah, then after that sad, tragic moment, they're in the library, and Sydney gets an instant message on an old ass looking computer just saying, "You're gonna die tonight. The police can't save you." She has two bodyguards walking around her. At this point, she's already like distanced herself from her boyfriend, and she's on edge with everything. And then you have another interaction with her and Cotton Weary, and he's just trying to tell her like, hey, we have an opportunity to go on TV with Diane Sawyer, and we're going to get paid this much. And she her mind is elsewhere because she's freaking out about everything. But then you see he's getting visibly frustrated with her because he just wants a chance to clear his name and make some money for himself, which is understandable. But why are you towering this girl to kind of like instill fear in her when you need her to cooperate with you? That conversation, I don't know, it could have been handled in a different way. I don't like the interactions that these two have with each other.
I don't think that conversation should have been allowed to happen at all. It seemed like Cotton It doesn't seem like Cotton is making smart decisions by communicating with Sydney. It doesn't seem like it's in his best interest to do that. Lawyers should be communicating with each other in regard to this. It's a very messy legal situation that they're involved in, and this dude is just fucking hanging out where she goes to college. I was like, does he go here? What is happening right now?
He doesn't even go here.
Yeah, it was so weird. I don't know. But yeah, Cotton sucks. He doesn't really, I've always struggled with Liev Schreiber as an actor, and him playing Cotton isn't helping his case for me.
He's very emotionless in almost every single scene he's in. It's just it's weird to see him laugh. It's weird to see him, get a little angry because he doesn't express all of his emotions majority of the time. The only time he really does is when he like his eyes fucking dilate at one point because he's getting heated with Sydney. But yeah, I don't know. His that whole thing was stupid.
He should be playing like the dad in Pet Cemetery or something.
I haven't seen Pet Cemetery. I know about it. I know why people don't like it, but I haven't seen that yet. I'm kind of nervous to watch it. But yeah, now they are trying to just really gear into who the killer is. Gail and Dewey are just going through her cameraman's footage, thinking, okay, well, if the killer's recording everything, he should be on these tapes.
And I like that they're kind of starting to rekindle their love. Not their love, but they have a moment before all of this where Gail's like, I just want to find the guy. And I'm like, finally, she's being a fucking character now. And this is where the movie starts winning me over, at least like in my initial watch. Like it's right when these two start reconnecting where I start getting right on board with it. Right before they like start looking at all the footage. And this yeah, we're about to get into some really exciting stuff.
It's because of Dewey. He finally is, like, softening up a little bit, and you get that vulnerability moment with him. That's why, isn't it? That's what won you over?
That him and Gail have a really good dynamic together, but then it just Gail I thought we got past her being unlikable in the first movie, and now we're back, and she's, like, even more unlikable in this one, in my opinion, at first, and she's finally a character that I can get on board with, and so it felt like the movie was able to kinda course correct with her character, and it shifts the movie into a better place. You still have the Liev Schreiber problem for me, but they correct the Courtney Cox problem for me.
Well, a spoiler and then not necessarily a spoiler. She always has stupid or she always makes dumb decisions in every movie that she's in with the Scream franchise.
They give her, like they have to give her some kind of story arc where she's gotta be redeemed or something in every movie.
Yeah, it's stupid. You get annoyed with her character a lot, and there's even like some points where my husband got mad at her in part 4 a lot. So again, we'll get there when we get there, but yeah, like I like how she's like basically a villain among all the good guys in this movie, but at the same time it's like your character I don't know, you're giving yourself like your character gives themselves like too much credit. Oh, I need to be here for these to help solve this stuff, to help solve these murders. She thinks she's a vital character in here, and to me that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, she's got 2 sides that are kind of at odds with each other in this movie, but I thought the moments where her and Dewey are looking through the old camera footage, I actually got really excited when they proposed that idea. I was like, "Fuck, are we about to, like, get a moment where we're reliving the moments of the movie we saw already and kind of contextualizing them, looking at the background, and it turns out, oh, this character was in every shot. Maybe we didn't notice. We didn't get that. We just got like bonus footage that we didn't see, kind of, but that's okay with me. It leads to a pretty cool chase. Uh, but yeah, Ghostface ends up basically chasing them throughout the little like AV tech area of the school. And I thought, again, these chases are super cool. They're probably the best parts of these movies. Last time I really shouted out the Sydney ones, especially. This movie, every time Ghostface is on screen in that costume, I'm like, okay, yes, I'm punching, my hand and just ready to go. I know I'm gonna get something exciting, and this delivers. Courtney Cox knocking over the shelf to block the door, all leading up to Dewey and Courtney being separated and Dewey getting stabbed a bunch in the fucking back. I I wonder if his leg's gonna be corrected from that stab injury now in the third movie or something. But I was convinced. I was like, they can't kill Dewey, but for a little bit, I was convinced that they might actually pull off, killing Dewey.
Before I go further into that, just hear me out on this one little point. So Scream and Halloween were the movies that kind of planted in my brain that, killers on the loose, they scope out the area that they are in where they plan on killing their victims, and I feel like they lock certain doors and just leave one or two open. That way, it makes it easier for them to find their victim when they're running away from them, because there's no way that they are able to directly find where they went in these big ass facilities like they're in. Um, and yeah, but the chase scenes, yeah, they just crank it up a notch. I fucking hated Dewey's like quote unquote death scene in here, his stabbing scene, because that part, like, he's getting stabbed. Gail can't see him. He's getting stabbed in his back again. And once he grabs the mic and yells her name, he's like thrown against the screen and is like slowly falling to the floor. And you see Gail crouching down with him. Like, you see that heartbreak that she's having right there. That moment was very, very difficult to watch. Like, it's even hard to watch it now. But yeah, her little chase scene, that was the part that kept me on edge the most in this film. His death scene, and then just like Ghostface following her after that, or like prior to that. That's a whole fucked up sequence.
It was, yeah, but Dewey makes it out in the end to after this scene, I wanna say we get brought over to, um it's Haley, is that her roommate's name? Haley and Sydney?
Hallie. Yeah, Hallie and Sydney.
Hallie. Haley and Sydney are going with, like, the 2 detectives. Are those the 2 white guys that are following Sydney around? Do you know, like,
Yeah,
the 2 older
yeah,
dudes?
they're detectives that the chief had assigned to just like guard her. They they don't do the best job, but yeah, 2 detectives.
Were they going in this moment?
I think they're just trying to take her to like a safe house. They don't really specify where. They just say like, "We're going to take you somewhere safe."
Yeah, so they end up
You see her, like Sydney and Hallie, they are just packing up in the car. Sydney shares a little moment with Derek. He's telling her, when all this is over, I'll still be here. And they drive off. And there's just a dumbass Greek scene because a part that we had forgot to mention, Derek sings to Sydney in like the cafeteria, and he gives her his letters necklace from his Greek house or fraternity, and apparently you're not supposed to do that. So all of his, brothers just like kidnap him and they tie him up to this thing from the play that Sydney was supposed to be starring in. And they're all just like hazing him pretty much. So he's stuck up there. And then they cut back to Sydney and Hallie. They're trying to figure
and
out where they're going.
that actually comes into play later too, which is kinda
Hmm.
fun.
Yeah. Ghostface pops up and I think he shoots at the detectives, and then he was able to kill one of them. He is able to get in the car and like fucking
Yeah,
drive
I couldn't
off.
remember how he got in the car. I was like, "How did it end up he's in the car and the detective is on the hood of the car?" I couldn't remember how they got there, but they get there.
Yeah, same. But the funny thing is it was reminding me of Child's Play when I think it was Kyle driving and then
Mm,
Chucky was just on the roof of the car. So that's just what I was
yeah.
anticipating. But like, yeah, that
I was so
detective,
scared for the detective.
yeah, he gets it rough. Like the car crashes and his face is like head first into these pipes or like the other way around, and he's twitching. You hear him gushing in there. That was, ew. I could have gone watching this movie without seeing that death scene.
You're talking about the pole through the face?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that God, that was pretty brutal. Honestly, this I gotta give it to Scream 2. They really got creative with these slasher kills. I can't think of I mean, maybe as we get into them, I'm not really gonna say like there are no other slasher movies that get this like wild and kind of creative, but keep it grounded in the real world still. We haven't watched any of the Jasons, or maybe rewatching the Halloweens, we'll notice some. But this one, it just, each kill, I didn't, it's like, Ghostface is using the environment. He's sloppily throwing bodies off of ledges. It's just kind of like whatever is around, Ghostface is using it to kill people. I appreciate that. But the pole goes through the detective's face. It's brutal. It feels like a lot. Ghostface is unconscious in the driver's seat. Then we get a scene that I was like bouncing up and down in my seat with tension watching, Fucking they have to peel back, they're, like, locked in the back of this cop car, and they have to peel back the metal divider that's separating the cockpit and the back seat, and Sydney has to crawl over and incapacitate a ghost face, and she does it pretty slickly, bumps on the horn, debates on taking off the mask but doesn't, and gets out of the car, and here I'm like, "No way 2 people make it out of this fucking car. There's no way that is allowed to
Mhm.
happen." And Hallie does, surprisingly. And in this moment, I'm like, take off his mask. Don't walk away. Take off his mask. They don't. They walk away. Then Sydney's like, I'm going to take off the mask. Hallie is like, don't do it. That's what gets people killed. Sydney does it anyway. Ghostface is gone. That's ultimately what gets Hallie killed. That I thought at one point actually she could have been the killer too, and this is where we really start taking out our options. I guess the original plan was for Hallie and Derek to be the killer in an original script that got leaked. So maybe
Mhm.
there are seeds of that still in there, and that's why I thought that. God damn it. Like she should have just taken off the mask immediately, like waste no time.
Yeah, because that whole point of hesitation was the part that, yes, got Hallie killed, and I hope she felt guilty for that. I liked Hallie. She had a small role, but,
Yeah.
she was cool. She didn't have to go out that way. She wanted to just hurry up and get out, but of course she was waiting for her friend. She was trying to be a good friend, and then what happens? She gets killed. That just goes to show you, you can't be a good person in this world.
Yeah, Hallie adds so much charm and personality to this movie, and it felt like a loss. This movie, it's effective though. You really care about the characters. It fleshes them out in believable and interesting ways. And yeah, Hallie was fun. It's like to see her go.
So Sydney, she's trying to like run to find some help, and she ends up back at the school, and she's in the theater because she hears music playing there, so she thinks, oh, there's someone inside. And then the music cuts off, and she sees the thing that Derek is tied to is like lowered down to the ground, so she's trying to wake him up, and she's trying to tell him, the killer's here. And then that's when Ghostface just pops up and starts telling her, I wouldn't untie him if I were you. Do you really want to trust your boyfriend? And then that's when it switches, or he turns off the little voice
Yeah,
changer.
he says they were working together.
Yeah, and that sucks so bad because it that really convinced Sydney. She was just, well, really she was conflicted because now she's just looking at Derek and second guessing herself like, "No, man, this can't be you." And he's just trying to like, beg her like, "No, untie me." And he's lying, but then Mickey ends up shooting him like right in the heart, and then his last dying words to Sydney were like, "I never would have hurt you." I'm like, "God damn it. Why'd you have to kill off the other guy that I liked in here?" So imagine that type of mind fuck.
Yeah, it's like just back to back, the voice thing doesn't work. I think it's Randy. It's not. It's Mickey. I'm slightly disappointed. Randy's not alive anymore. So it's back to back shell shock, but then take off the mask. It's Mickey. I'm like, fuck, Timothy Oliphant. At first, I didn't love it. I was like, come on. But it grew on me. The whole, I, uh, I want to make the sequel. The sequel can be better than the original. I bought it. And his pitch, I'm going to sell that horror movies made me do it. I have Christian people that will fund this. I have this and that will back me. I'm good. There's a defense here. I thought that was cool, but man, Sydney's hesitation ultimately leading to Derek's demise. It was very fitting. It was kind of nice. I found it pretty tragic. It felt very mean to Derek. It really did. But, you know, these movies do kind of get a little mean and wild at the end, but god damn it, Derek. Like, I guess you were a good guy. I guess I misjudged you.
He was a good guy. He had some questionable scenes, like when he sang to her. I don't think any of the cast actually liked that scene. And I believe that is what Jerry O'Connell had to sing when he auditioned for the role of Derek. But yeah, he genuinely loves Sydney, and then she didn't fully trust the guy, and then he died for her. What a waste. You can't be friends or intimate with Sydney Prescott. You just can't.
I find it interesting that they had him audition with that. It's a scene from Top Gun, and in that moment, I did think Jerry O'Connell does have a Tom Cruise look to him a little bit. So part of me was wondering, like, if his casting was kind of trying to just comment on the big star of the day, because Tom Cruise kind of was the guy in the late 90s. This is like Mission Impossible was big, Top Gun, and he was about to do like Eyes Wide Shut and Magnolia and get an Oscar nomination. So I thought that was kind of cool. This movie does have like more pop culture references than the first one did, and it's more like commenting on movies as a whole more than just horror.
After you get Mickey's killer reveal, he's saying, "Yeah, I do have a partner." And then you think it's Gail because she just pops out of the side stage door, but then it's the one woman, Debbie Salt or Laurie Metcalf.
Yeah,
And then you find out, like, oh, that
the
was.
mom of Lady Bird.
My name is Ladybird.
Well, actually, it's not, and it's
Call
ridiculous
me
because her name
Ladybird
is
like you said
Christine.
you would.
You find out that's Billy Loomis's mom. And I don't know. It's like it's a cool twist, but at the same time, I'm not entirely sold on it. Yeah, so they reveal their whole plan. She or Mickey was just in it to, yeah, blame the movies. He's pretty much crazy. And then Debbie is just like, no, we're not doing that. And then she kills him, well, shoots him. And then she even shot Gail too, I think. Or one of them did.
Yeah, 2
Gail's
birds with
just.
1 stone. Yeah, she gets Mickey, gets Gale. Gale falls off the stage too, so you're kinda like, "They're not killing Gale."
Yeah, I feel like she shot Mickey, and then he had a gun in his hand too, and he ended up shooting Gail, I think. But whatever. Anyway, yeah, so then Mrs. Loomis is just saying, I'm just going to blame all of this on you. And she ends up saying, like, everyone always blames the mother for things. Well, why don't we blame your mother? She is
I
basically
like that.
saying, yeah, she's like, your mom ruined like my life with everything. You took my son. But then Sydney made a good point because she's like, well, you abandoned your son,
Call me
Because her name
Ladybird
is
like you said
Christine.
you would.
which is true because it's like, okay, that whole thing kind of came to be because Billy found out that his mom or Sydney's mom was having an affair with his dad, and his mom found out, and then she just up and leaves. So it's like, okay, I understand you're going to leave your husband, but why are you abandoning your son? Did you not have any type of relationship with him after? Like, he didn't do anything to you. So that's on her for screwing that up and then him turning into a fucking killer.
I like that it is in the day and age too, where people are just starting to point at the parents in these situations where like something horrific will happen and people are like, well, let's look at the way that they were raised. So I do kind of like that this is a parent fighting back against that mentality. She has a line that I think fucking rules. She's talking about Mickey, but she's like, my motive isn't as 90s as Mickey's. I want good old fashioned revenge. I was like, that's
Mhm.
pretty badass. I get it.
Yeah, that was a good way to just, like, seal in her motive on everything. And then even the way Laurie Metcalf just plays out her role in here, her eyes are just she's so wide-eye in here, and,
Hmm.
she's kinda smiling, she's laughing at certain parts, saying how she's gonna get away with everything. And then when she just, like, yells at Sydney, like, she looks so crazed. But,
Hmm.
yeah, so I guess kind of watching the scene play out, that's where I can kinda, like, buy into her being the second killer, but I don't know. I feel like they could have gone a different way, but yeah, I originally didn't suspect her.
I appreciated it because it was more Laurie
I
Metcalf.
could see that.
So then basically, like, right after all of this, Cotton comes in. I don't know if he's already got a gun, but he basically comes in and saves the day. I like how it almost looks like Liev Schreiber's, like, stumbling over the debris and everything that's on
Mhm.
set. Actually, Cotton comes in after, like, a whole shootout with Laurie Metcalf that I kinda forgot about, where, Sidney topples a whole bunch of what look like actual concrete props on Laurie Metcalf,
Right.
not foam.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if they would use real rocks for this. But so, yeah, the set's all torn apart, and Liev Schreiber comes in and has, them at gunpoint, and Laurie Metcalf is holding Sydney with a knife up against her throat. They're doing a little bit of negotiating, and Liev Schreiber's like, that what is it? What Diane Sawyer? That Diane
Mhm.
Sawyer interview doesn't sound too bad right now. And then she's like, "You got a deal." And then Cotton takes the shot and kills Laurie Metcalf. I didn't think that's how they were gonna end. Again, everything with Cotton seems so sloppy. This is the best use of that sloppiness. I kind of I can appreciate the ending. I didn't fully love the way that that wrapped up, but I could appreciate Cotton saving the day and it coming down to that interview. But God, Cotton fucking sucks, man. Fuck that dude.
He does, and then even after he shot Mrs. Loomis, he tells Sydney, "I would never do anything to hurt you." Okay, well, you were pretty convincing right there trying to say,
Yeah.
"This is gonna be the only way you won't shoot me is if I agree to this fucking interview." But yeah, you find out
Yeah,
Gail's
Cotton's a fucking
alive.
creep.
He is, and then Gail's alive, her cameraman comes back, and she sees Dewey getting rolled out on, like, one of those stretchers, and he's alive, so, she just, like, dips out on the story to go, like, make sure he's okay at the hospital.
We also forgot to it goes on like that last scene at the theater goes out on another jump scare. Courtney Cox and fucking Nev Campbell are way too comfortable just fucking loading people up with guns. I just kind of want to say that about that, but they've double tap Mickey and Laurie Metcalf in a very unsettling way. Also, how much ammo do those guns have? We can't get into it. The question for your husband is how much ammo these guns have.
I'll ask him because I think they use similar firearms in part 3. But
Yeah.
yeah, I did forget about that. They do shoot Mickey a little excessively, but he did jump up and was just screaming. So, I think both of them shooting at him was too much, especially because none of those bullets seemed to miss. They all happened to hit him. So it didn't need to go on for that long. For them to do, like, that one extra shot to Laurie Metcalf, like, that was more reasonable, and it was just a direct shot to the head, so
It almost felt like so the beginning where there were because the first movie got criticized for like lack of people of color in it, so I feel like this movie made a conscious effort to have like people of color in it. The I want to say the ending was probably criticized a little bit or like made fun of a little bit. The double tap, the headshot, how comfortable people are with shooting. It seems like they maybe were aware of that and just doubled down on it in this one. They're like, fine, we'll make them just unload on them without an issue.
yeah, probably. But yeah, once, like, both the killers are dead, Gail is, on the way to the hospital with Dewey, and you see all of the news crews going up to Sydney trying to interview her and, like, ask her, "Oh, how does it feel to be a hero?" And then she just directs them to Cotton, who's a few steps away from her. And she's like, "No, you want to interview him because he's the real hero." And then they all just zoom on over to him, and you see they have their little look of acknowledgement, like, "Okay, here's my end of the deal, whatever." But again, with the score, you start to
He's like,
hear
I
like
want
some
money.
but you start to hear, like, the score building up, you hear some violins playing, and that was the song that was starting to play after Derek sang to her in the cafeteria. I don't know why, I just love that little piece of music and how it sounds. Um, Yeah, it was a cool way to end the movie, just, like, on that, and then, she just kinda walks off into the distance. I don't know who she was gonna walk to, all of her buddies are dead, but yeah, I guess she's walking on to part 3.
Yeah, and you have a nice crane shot that the credits are playing over. That's really cool. I like how these movies end with the shots of the characters. Like every speaking role looks like it has single card billing with a shot of the character they played. It's very like Star Trek or Predator is a very notable one that did that. Twilight, The New Moon Part 2 ended that way. Avengers Endgame similarly. I like when movies are kind of like, hey, here's the cast and who they played. So it was a nice
Mhm.
way to go out on. I hope they all end this way.
I think they do, yeah. I feel like they do.
Yeah, until they get to 7 where Paramount just doesn't know what to do with the franchise. I do wonder where they go. But you got any final thoughts on Scream 2? Electric Boogaloo?
Um No, it's still a cool watch. I will watch it if I'm, marathoning these films. But yeah, between this one and the first one, obviously the first one like takes like a higher trophy, like the gold trophy compared to
It's the gold medal. It's your number
metal.
1, this movie, it gets first place. He was number 1, right? I think that's the SpongeBob line.
Yeah. Good reference.
Scream 2, yeah, had a lot of fun with it. It took about an hour to really grow on me. It's one of those I think I'm gonna like it more on rewatch. I think this whole series, it was so in the culture, so, maybe it just the first one didn't hit me in the way that I feel like it hit other people. This one hit me a bit more closer to the way that I feel like it hit the culture when it first came out. The further we get into it, the more unfamiliar I am. But I think this is something that's really going to grow with me as I watch them and as time passes, as I rewatch them, as they maybe come on TV or what have you. Yeah, I had a good time with Scream 2, though. This was a fun one, and looking forward to Scream 3. I wonder, is this supposed to be the bad one? I don't know, don't tell me, but that is in my head right now. Is this the bad one? Because I want to say 4 was kind of proposed as like the soft reboot, maybe. So we'll see going into it. I don't really. I'm interested to see what the fuck Scream 3 is all about.
Yeah, just remembering some details, I'm excited to put Scream 3 back on. So,
Yeah, Courtney Cox with short hair, I think.
yeah, that's a whole conversation on its own. But everyone, stay tuned.
Hell yeah, guys. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Stay tuned for Scream 3 next week, and we've been Morbid Curiosities.
Let's go.